Everyone, you are not going to believe this. I have finally found it. I have found the real and true Gomu Gomu no Mi, the actual real rubber fruit, right? And it's seriously right here in my hands. Yes, this is the real, true rubber devil fruit, alright? It only makes sense that it would actually be a rubber tire. Now it all makes sense. The whole reason on why Oda literally has Luffy's transformations be called gears. We know better. Gears are for a gear shift in a car. It all makes sense on why the actual rubber devil fruit should technically be a tire. It all makes sense. This is the true Gomu Gomu no Mi. And Luffy's devil fruit is the Hito no Mi Malonika. Oh, finally, I am going to have the powers of rubber! Oh, they weren't kidding. Those were the nasty. Oh, they're disgusting. Oh, gross. Take my word for it, everybody. What they say about devil fruits being nasty, they are nasty. Oh, gross. Okay. Hey everybody, my name is Clifford, and I am back for a brand new video. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that opening. Let's actually get into the actual context of the video, right? So, oddly enough, this is actually going to be used for a certain reason. However, the whole video itself is not necessarily me wanting to actually talk about a tire in general, but it has something to do with Luffy's devil fruit exactly, or basically his gears that I want to go over, okay? And you know what? A tire itself, not a bad idea to actually use in this scenario, right? Even though, technically speaking, a tire really has nothing to do with it, but still, a rubber tire, gears, cars, that kind of scenario. So, you know what? It actually fits, alright? I think it works just fine, alright? Stay right there. Do not move. You can never be too careful when you actually put something up for a video's sake, alright? You never know when it's going to fall down. Stay right there. I know you can hear me. Don't you dare fall down. I got my eye on you. I'm counting on you guys, alright? You make sure you let me know if that thing falls, right? I'm trusting you guys. I'm trusting you. Alright. So, yes, this whole video is actually going to be about Luffy's gears in general, right? Or basically the transformations themselves. Not in terms of like the actual transformations, but in how the gears actually work. And, necessarily I also want to go over sort of a prediction idea on what we can actually see on a Gear 6. Like, this is sort of like what the main topic is, right? And before I really get into the whole Gear 6 aspect of it, I think we really need to go over like the gears in general, right? Now, alright, so one thing is this, right? So with the gears, one of my favorite things on them necessarily that I actually learned about is how the gears themselves particularly focus on a system of the human body, alright? Now, before I really get into the fully aspects of covering over everything in general, first I want to get a bit of a shout out to Tekking 101, right? Because it was Tekking's original Gear 5 video that he made back in the whole wild in his bedroom days, things like that, when he made like the very first, I think it was his first Gear 5 video where he sort of talked about the ideas of what Gear 5 could actually be made and done, right? Matter of fact, I think this was even before we even got like Gear 4 Tank Man and Gear 4 Snake Man, right? So yeah, that would have been back during like maybe around the Bowman days, right? Alright. So it was because of that video that I fully learned or fully like came into the realization as like, oh, hey, yeah, he's right. These do focus on the system of the human body, right? It really does. Now, to be honest, I'm sure other people have probably already figured that out beforehand. And like, even though I did see the gears like in action before, I probably just didn't really think about it that much at the time, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who didn't, right? However, it was Tekken's video where I first actually came to the realization of it when it was first actually pointed out to me, right? So I really want to make sure to give that a bit of a shout out, right? And it's an old video, right? So I still want to actually make sure it's, make sure that everyone fully understands that, okay? Right. So the way it's actually done is like that is, with the whole gears each focusing on a system of human body, you can sort of get an idea of the systems themselves in general, right? Let's go over let's go over Luffy's gears and stuff like that, and when we might be able to sort of see the aspects of them itself, and we can understand like the the system in the human body that they mostly reflect on. All right. Now, obviously, the first form, his base form, which Luffy obviously receives, or anyone receives after eating the Delphi, right? I would most likely have to regulate this to being the closest to being the integumentary system, right? So, maybe before we fully get into the actual systems in the human body, or the systems or the gears that Luffy reflects, it might be best to actually go over the systems in the human body that we're fully understanding what they are, right? All right. So let's actually list off the systems first in the human body, and with that, we might actually get a good idea on an idea we can actually use for the sixth one in general, right? And how we can understand how these actually work. Okay. All right. So the first one is obviously the integumentary system, right? So the integumentary system, it basically protects the body by acting as a barrier with the skin, hair, and nails, right? So basically, one of the first things that you actually see in the main part of the human system that you actually see firsthand is actually your skin, right? Which is actually a part of the integumentary system, right? So your skin, hair, nails, even your like sweat glands and stuff like that are all part of the integumentary system, right? So those are important things to actually look forward to, okay? Now, I would obviously label like Luffy's gear first, or basically his base form, the first form you basically receive after eating the Delphi being the integumentary system, right? Because, so think of it this way, right? Even though Oda did basically state that everything about Luffy's body is made of rubber now, right? It's not just his outer shell, but also his inner organs as well, right? Everything is made of rubber. However, the whole situation here is, think of it like this, right? So imagine like if you were to ask Luffy, hey Luffy, stretch out your bones, but leave your arm the same size, right? You probably have to think like, okay, how is Luffy actually going to do that, right? How can he stretch out his bones but leave his arm the same size, right? And truth be told, I don't think that's going to be possible unless he's going to pop his bones out of his body, which I'm sure nobody wants to see that. No, not me. Definitely not. Right. The next system is the skeletal system, right? Which is actually the bone structure, or which maintains the structure of the body and its organs, right? So basically, while the integumentary system is basically the skin itself, along with the hairs and nails, which actually protects the body from outer threats itself, the skeletal system is the thing that helps maintain the structure of the body and helps protect the organs inside, okay? Next, you have the muscular system, which enables the body to move using the muscles, all right? Next up is the circulatory system, circulates blood throughout the body, delivering oxygen and nutrients to the cells, all right? Now, these three systems I actually just mentioned are actually the systems used for Luffy's gears in general, right? So the circulatory system is actually used for the gear second, right? Luffy basically pumps blood throughout his body, getting the blood to move faster, allowing him to move at incredible speeds, all right? So that's basically how it works, right? The next one is the skeletal system, which obviously reflects on the whole aspect of Gear Third, right? With Gear Third, Luffy blows airs into his bones, making them bigger, right? Making his attacks more of a wider range expand and a little bit more devastating in that moment, all right? And then you have Gear Fourth, which actually reflects into the whole muscular system, right? So it's basically the same process here, where where the whole idea of how Luffy achieves the transformation is very much the same of Gear Third, blowing air into the muscles, where while the previous one actually blows air into the bones, this time he's blowing airs into the muscles, right? And one thing to actually understand here is when Luffy's doing it in general and how he's achieving it, whenever he was blowing air into his bones, he was always doing it on his fingertips in general. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it was always on his fingerprints, or not fingerprints, but fingertips or his thumb. Where in his muscles, he was actually blowing it on his arm itself, right? And one thing I should point out here is that with the muscular system is made up of 3 different types of muscles, all right? And oddly enough, Luffy's Gear Fourth has three forms to it, all right? So I'm not sure if that's any inspiration for it in general, and it's hard to even know like which gear itself, like which gear form actually reflects on a muscle itself. But the whole gear forms that are basically introduced to us that we know of that Oda has given us. Hold on. Sorry about that. So the gear forms that basically we received, or that we know of that Luffy definitely has, which I'm sure there's only 3, is obviously the first one, Bound Man, all right, which was introduced during his fight with Doflamingo. Then you have Gear Fourth, Tank Man, which was introduced during his fight with Cracker. And then lastly, you have Gear Fourth, Snake Man, which was introduced during his fight with Katakuri, okay? So those are the three Gear 4th forms, right? The next one we have is the nervous system, right? The nervous system controls the bodily functions through signals sent by the brains and spinal cord, right? Now, obviously, you would have to say Luffy's ultimate Gear 5th form, like his awakening, would have to be reflected in the whole nervous system, right? Because the nervous system is basically like the brain itself, right? And because Luffy's body has fully awakened and his powers have basically achieved a greater status, right? Like where his whole idea, like, you know, the brain and the body have all caught up to each other and stuff like that. And because the nervous system, while it is important to understand here is that the whole general concept of being nervous is not the same thing in terms of like the nervous system itself, right? The nervous system is basically like the brain itself that signals throughout the body, allowing it to operate, right, and move functionally, right? It's basically like the whole computer module of the body itself, right? And because Luffy's body has awakened to like a new level, the Gear 5th can basically be seen as a general idea on the whole concept of his awakening, right? Because it is literally like an achievement, okay? So other things that you have are also the endocrine system, right? Which is the system that produces hormones that regulate various bodily processes like metabolism and growth, all right? Now, if that word hormones actually sounds familiar, it's like that's actually the same adult fruit that Ivankov has, all right? Ivankov has the hormone fruit, or basically the hormone fruit, which actually allows him to, well, to put it simple, he basically allows him to alter the human body, or he basically has become like an altering humans like that, where he can alter like their physical body and structure while also doing other features as well, like that, giving them a better lifespan, like healing curing them from like maybe like poison and things like that by taking off like part of their lifespans like that. So there's other things in general, right? And it's important to note here is that the hormones themselves, while the features that Oda is depicted with Ivankov using, is completely different in general for how hormones actually work, all right? However, this would actually be very interesting here for this, right? So imagine if we were going the whole concept of like Gear 6 itself, right? Imagine if one of the ideas that Gear 6 could use is actually focusing on the endocrine system itself, right? So imagine like if there is a scenario where Luffy's body, being made of rubber, he's able to like restrict his body and something to like a new feature. Like imagine if he's able to actually mimic other things or actually change his body into a unique way, right? So imagine like if that is the case, and like how Oda has depicted it, like you don't need Ivankov to turn Luffy into a woman, and Luffy's Gear 6 can obviously do that himself. Like maybe Luffy could easily turn himself into a woman himself, right? Just something to basically just throw in there. It's like that. Right. Next up, you have the immune system, which is the system that helps to fight off infections, all right? You also have the respiratory system, which is responsible for gas exchange by taking in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide through the lungs, all right? Followed by the digestive system, which breaks down food into nutrients for the body to use, all right? Next up, you have the urinary system, which filters blood with the help of kidneys to produce urine and get rid of waste, all right? And then lastly, you have the reproduction system, right? Which is basically the system that is responsible for reproduction, right? So basically in the sense of like, help, it's basically the system to actually help reproduce certain organs or, well, not organs itself, things like that, but, it's basically the system to help reproduce, right? So basically, like the easiest way to actually explain it in general is like that is basically making an offspring, right? It's basically the system that helps to make an offspring, right? It's basically the system that helps create, like cells and eggs and sperms, things like that. In order to help create a baby boy or baby girl, an offspring, right? Basically that. All right. So yes, in general, with the whole gears and whole systems I actually just mentioned here, there are a total of 11 systems in the body, right? And oddly enough, with the ones that I basically mentioned, it is kind of like questionable and wonder, or even if there is like a Gear 6, which truth be told, I don't think there possibly will be one. I suppose there could always be one, right? I mean, one thing to actually look at and why there could be a Gear 6 is because of this, and it's something that everyone actually, well, maybe not everyone potentially, but for the ones out there who've actually talked about it in general, have all sort of like agreed on this whole concept here is that, with Luffy, like just awakening is like that, like his awakening has just happened, all right? Like it literally has just happened, all right? Even though it's been like 2 or 3 years now since Gear 5th officially was revealed in the manga and stuff like that, and it's like we're now in Elbaf, so potentially speaking, even though it has been like 3 years in general for us, for Luffy, it's no more than just been like a couple of weeks, maybe 3, maybe even a month. So yeah, he's literally just opened it up, right? And with the whole idea of it, because like he's just awakened it and it's like that, there might actually be more to his Gear 5th than we might not understand here. So it could be possible that another idea you can look at is that Gear 5th will have like another form to itself. Like just like Gear 4th had 3 different forms, Gear 5th could also have another form, right? However, I do think it might be actually a little bit more interesting here if obviously Oda did with the whole aspect of Gear 6 instead of going like Gear 5th new form. I think it would be more reasonable to just go Gear 6 in general, right? And not to mention here, it actually kind of makes more sense here if Luffy's 2 awakening forms, like if this awakening form, actually focused on a Gear 5th and Gear 6 in general, right? Because you obviously put those numbers together. 5, 6, go, move, right? Gear 5th focusing on the first aspect of it, while Gear 6 focuses on the second aspect of it, alright? So that's just something to actually add in there, and it does kind of actually make sense when you think about it, alright? And it's a good way to tie in like the Delphi number itself to go Nami, alright? So going over in general to that, and literally thinking about it, what are some other systems that could be good for like a Gear 6 in general, right? So obviously the whole Gear 5th awakening inside that is a good way to really focus on the nervous system itself, right? Because the whole body is awakened inside that, the brain allows it to send out signals throughout the body, it's like that, okay? And obviously you have your other systems as well, it's like that, but it's really focusing on which one would be the best one for the 6th one, right? Now, obviously right away, I would have to necessarily get rid of the reproduction system and the urinary system. Right? I don't think those systems would actually work in this case for Gear 6 inspiration for a power-wise thing. So I feel like we can get rid of those, right? Those systems we can get rid of, right? Not literally, because we actually need those, right? But we don't need them for the concept of the video, okay? So if I literally had to narrow it down, I would have to say, I guess you could say like the endocrine system. However, you could also say the endocrine system also works well with like Gear 5th awakening. So you might even say like the nervous system and endocrine system both function with the whole Gear 5th awakening. It's like that because we do know that Luffy's body, while it's fully awakened, it's like that, and he doesn't necessarily have to be the whole concept of like blowing air to his body. He can actually just grow out his body itself. And because like the whole endocrine system is actually the system that actually helps with growth itself, and Luffy can make himself a giant, so I guess you could say the endocrine system and nervous system are both part of Gear 5th, right? But obviously enough, there could be more to it, and then you might even be able to use that for a Gear 6 in general, right? So that's something to look forward to, right? Next up, we have the immune system, which, that could actually be interesting itself. So imagine if Luffy's immune system has achieved a new level here, which actually would be very interesting to actually talk about out and wonder, okay, well, if Luffy does achieve a Gear 6 and it focuses on the immune system, how could that actually work? Like, how could that actually work, right? The immune system is a system that helps fight off infections and things like that to help the body live and survive. But it does seem kind of questionable in how that could actually work here. So, yeah, I mean, it does seem like a very hard, difficult thing to actually discuss, but it's something to look forward to, alright? Next up, you have the respiratory system, which is obviously the system to help, it's basically the system that helps us breathe, right? And stuff. So, and, one thing you actually look forward here is like that is like, maybe this could work for Gear 6, but instead it does feel, it just doesn't feel like it works in general, right? Like, it just feels like it's not necessarily like a gear that could actually work for that kind of scenario, right? And then lastly, you have the digestive system, which again in itself really doesn't really work in general. Like, it doesn't seem to fit. So obviously, it really seems like there is no real other inspiration-wise for a system in the human body to reflect on the Gear 6. Like, it just seems like it doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't seem like there's anything to look forward. And then you also have the question and basically ask, well, how does the awakening even achieve? Like, how does Luffy would achieve the transformation, right? So with the whole like gears themselves and the transformations themselves and how he sort of activates them, right? So with Gear 6, with Gear 2nd, he pumps body throughout his, he pumps blood throughout his body, right? Either pumping his legs or pumping his arms, right? Gear 3rd, he blows air into his bones, right? Usually by just biting onto his thumb. Gear 4th, blowing air into his muscles by blowing air into his biceps, right? Or triceps. And then you have Gear 5th, which obviously we see is done by Luffy getting his heart to start beating, right? He basically listens to the rhythm of his heart, right? And it's basically like the whole idea of his heart imitating a drum sound, right? And with that, whenever Luffy like stays calm and relaxed, from what we can understand here is that he basically listens to his heartbeat and like the beating sound, which gives off a bit of like a drumming aspect of it, a bit of That's probably not how the sound how the actual sound should sound, it's like that. But basically, it has something to do with his heart beating. And then you have to ask a very important question here. Okay, well, how would Gear 6 activate, right? How does Gear 6 activate, right? And literally, that is a very good question. How could Gear 6 activate, right? So, Gear 2nd pumps blood through the body. Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd blows air into either the muscles or bones. Gear 5th listens to the drums of liberation, listens to the heartbeat, alright? So then, you have to ask, how would Gear 6 actually achieve? Like, what would Gear 6 do? What could Gear 6 do? I'm actually kind of stumped. I don't think I have a good idea on that. You know what? I'll leave it up to you guys, right? Go ahead in the comment section below and actually let me know on what you actually think would actually work best for Luffy to use for Gear 6 Awakening, right? Like, what would actually Luffy do in order to activate the Gear 6, and how could he actually achieve it, right? That could actually be something really interesting here, right? Right, so yeah, so that's literally everything to go over and the whole idea of it itself and stuff like that, and everything to really discuss with Luffy's Gear 6 in general, right? And, it honestly wouldn't be fair if I actually didn't go over, if I didn't really give an idea on what Luffy could actually look like with his Gear 6, right? Like, what Luffy could actually look like with Gear 6, right? So obviously, we need to get an idea on what Luffy could actually look like with Gear 6, and I think I have the best idea, right? This is what I think Luffy could look like with Gear 6, right? In 1, 2, 3, be amazed! Yes! Yes, you see it here, you see it now. This is what Luffy will look like once he achieves Gear 6, right? That is exactly how it looks. Yes, I know. It is amazing. Alright. So, before I officially end off the video itself, right? There is a bit of a bonus thing I want to add here, right? So, when I've discussed like the whole aspect of this moon goddess Delphi, right? And yes, I know. Some people are probably going to think, oh, please stop, please. Okay, look, I get it, right? But this is something I really want to discuss here on something like this, right? So, for anyone who's actually watched my videos on the whole moon DT or the moon goddess Delphi, I've actually mentioned it before, and the whole glass powers or based abilities of itself. I mentioned the transformations that can take some inspirations from things like, like a light bulb and stuff like that for the second form, a mirror for one form, a window to reflect on, the outside world and stuff like that, and then, for the awakening form to reflect on like the moon or like the rainbow itself, reflect, to sort of reflect on like glass art or something like that to like sort of achieve that, right? So that's basically the general concept of it, okay? However, one thing to actually look forward to here is that it was always very interesting here to actually discuss, like, okay, well, what could be a good way for the transformations to exceed? Like, if they do reflect on that kind of ability and that kind of transformation to reflect on that, what could actually be some interesting things that you could actually do in general and say that? What could actually be something to look for here, right? And, I think I might have some ideas on actually what could be important here for the whole transformations themselves. Like, how could the transformations actually achieve? So where Luffy in general with his, how he pumps blood with Gear 2nd, blows airs, something to actually go over here is what I would think how the transformations of the Moon Goddess can actually work. And I might have an idea on this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of list these off. I'm going to sort of explain the ideas of it, right? So where Luffy focuses on a system of human body, I think it would be a good aspect here if the transformations of the Moon Goddess Delphi are focused by focusing on not necessarily focusing on, but are more achieved by focusing on an actual organ itself, particularly one of the main vital organs, right? I feel like that's actually an important thing here, right? Now, with the whole organs in the body, there are a lot of organs in the human body, right? However, there are 5 vital essential organs in the human body that is necessary for living, right? So these 5 organs in the human body that are very essential for living, right, are the heart, the lungs, liver, brain, and kidneys, right? So once again, right, that's heart, lungs, liver, brain, and kidneys, right? Those are the main vital organs, all right? The heart is the only organ in the body that is also a muscle, right? It is made up of muscle tissue called cardiac muscle, right? Which is found in the heart. Cardiac muscle is responsible for the heart's ability to pump blood throughout the body, right? Heart pumps 5.6 liters of blood within the body 3 times per minute, right? And as I mentioned with like Luffy's Gear 4th forms and stuff like that, and how the human body has 3 types of muscles, right? The 3 muscles you have are the skeletal muscles, attached bones responsible for voluntary movement like walking or lifting, and then the last one you have is smooth muscles, right? Is the involuntary, meaning and it contracts and relaxes automatically without conscious throughout. It is a type of muscle tissue that is found in the walls of the many hollow organs like the stomach, okay? Next up, you have the liver, located on the right side of the abdomen. The liver is responsible for filtering blood, secreting bile that helps with digestive, producing proteins, producing immune factors, and removing bacteria, right? Detoxification, removing harmful substances and toxins from the blood, right? Lungs are 2 primary organs of the respiratory system responsible for facilitating gas exchanges or breathing, right? Lungs allow oxygen when you inhale from the air when you breathe, right? Lungs allow carbon dioxide out when you exhale carbon dioxide. A waste gas is released from the body, right? Lungs help protect from coughing and sneezing, supporting sensitive smells, moisturizing the air in the body at the right humidity levels, right? The brain is the organ that is the center of control of the human body, right? It is the job of the brain to help sensation, movement throughout emotions, regulations, balancing, coordination, and visual perception here, okay? And then lastly, you have the kidneys, right? Which is basically the system that, the kidneys is basically a system that actually focuses on like the urinary system, right? That's basically the system, or the kidneys are basically the organs to actually help help create urine and stuff like that, to help remove waste, right? So that's basically their aspects, okay? Now, over in general to that, like the way I can look at it is like with the whole ideas of it itself, is that if the transformations could be achieved by focusing on an organ themselves, maybe it could be a good aspect here of like where say like Nami could actually, or like say anyone in general, or where I basically focused on Nami in general, is able to say like she's able to actually morph or change her body or like her finger into like a type of key, right? And then all of a sudden, like let's say like where these specific organs rely on or organs are, there's actually like a keyhole, right? Maybe that's actually something that can actually achieve here, right? So what I can actually look for here is the gears themselves being achieved by sort of like turning a keyhole or like turning the ignition on like a car itself, or turning like or basically unlocking system, right? It's basically unlocking something, right? So, and then each of these organs sort of reflect on that, okay? And it's actually a good way to sort of tie in something with Luffy's style fruit in general, right? So this is basically what I would like to achieve here, right? So where Luffy's is literally called gears, what I would like to achieve on this, or basically entitled on this idea, is by calling them pinions, right? So let me ask you for an opinion, all right? So obviously the first pinion would obviously be the first form that you would achieve after eating the adult fruit, right? Your body has basically become like a glass structure, right? You basically become like a glass-like person, right? Obviously, so I gave you a first opinion. Now let me ask you for a second opinion, all right? What's up, right? Obviously, the second one could focus on the heart, right? This could be a good way to sort of tie in Luffy's gear second, focusing on the blood itself, right? And obviously, the heart could be a good way to reflect on that, right? This might actually be a good way to actually tie in, the heart being a muscle itself. You might even be able to tie in Luffy's gear fourth, which focuses on the muscular system in this journal, because the heart is a muscle itself. Not only will you actually see Nami as sort of like a glow in the dark arc that can actually sort of like expand like part of their glass body and stuff like that, where the temperature has changed to actually make their fist look like a giant light bulb in general, but they've also become like a muscular like sort of a muscular bound super hot Nami like babe, all right? And then maybe for maybe a third opinion, we can focus on the liver, right? Maybe the liver could actually be a good way to actually achieve the next state of it, right? Now, really, it is important to actually know here is like what connections do these organs even have to do with the human body in general, or the transformations themselves? Well, truth be told, you can ask that same question with Luffy's Delver itself, right? Like, what does the human body have anything to do with Luffy's transformations in general, right? I mean, he's achieving them and they are focusing on them, but in general, it's still a very interesting concept to actually ask that. So obviously now let me ask you for a fourth opinion, right? Obviously the fourth one could actually reflect on like the lungs themselves, right? So, and maybe this could actually work for like the window itself, because like, you know, like the whole idea of the or like the lungs help with breathing and stuff like that at you know, the outside world and stuff like that, like air and stuff like that, you know, breathing fresh air in general. Maybe that could be a good way to actually sort of tie that in, all right? Maybe it could be a good way, all right? And then lastly, for a fifth opinion inside that is obviously the brain. You know, obviously using it to help with your awakening seems like it's really the best fit. It does seem like it's really the best thing to go over, okay? So, but yeah, so that's everything I want to discuss. That's everything I really wanted to talk about in general, right? Everything I really wanted to go over, right? So that will be it for this video. My name is Clifford. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed my content and you enjoyed my video, right? If you enjoyed anything I did have to discuss and you want to see more from me, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I really want my channel to grow. I know I still need a lot of work, and I have made like a lot of videos, and I've been doing this for making these videos for like what's been like 3 or 4 years. I don't remember when my first video came out. I'll say that, but it's been a long time, and I've sort of been working very slowly at a time. But as long as I keep going at it and keep working and stuff like that, eventually I will achieve, right? But I still gotta keep working at it, right? So if you want to see more from me and you're okay with how I work, and you know I know I do have trouble sometimes with that, and you know not all my videos are probably really best for everybody and stuff like that, but hey, we can't always make everyone pleased and happy for intro, right? So but if you enjoyed this video, just let me know by subscribing to the channel, hit notification bells, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share the video if you feel like it needs to be shared, right? So that'll be it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Clifford, and you all have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.